Hi, welcome everybody to the Doing It Sober podcast. Thanks for joining us again. We have a very interesting, unique person on the show today. I'm really excited to introduce him. Gentleman from, well, actually, he was born and raised in the south side of Chicago, living in Minneapolis now. His sobriety date is January 17th, 2018. He had a few drugs of choice: alcohol, marijuana, cocaine. He was actually born in a rough upbringing. You grew up around drugs and alcohol, gangs, rats, roaches, physical, verbal, mental, and sexual abuse. All by the age of 13, you witnessed your mom get abused. You watched your dad go to jail. You were molested from age 8 to 10. And when you were 13, you watched your twin brother die the day after Christmas. You smoked your first joint at 14 years old, and for the first time you could remember to that point, it made all the pain go away. That the first time I ever got drunk was at 17. All right. Finally, you were sick and tired of being sick and tired, so you checked yourself into the Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge. You found your purpose was to use your story as a weapon of love, grace, and redemption, and inspiration to inspire others to overcome, just as he's been doing himself. He did something pretty amazing. He walked from Minneapolis to California to bring awareness to people who struggle from addiction, suicide prevention, and homelessness. Along the way, you stopped at different rehab facilities and youth homes to tell your story with the hopes of overcoming. Welcome, Jeremy.
Hello, thank you.
You are incredible, man.
That was an amazing intro.
I mean, wow, what a journey that you've been on. And you've been sober over a year now.
2 years.
How did everything happen? Like, where did you've had it hard? How did you come to the point where you wanted to surrender?
I just, like you said, I got sick and tired of being sick and tired, and blaming everybody else for my choices. And I just got sick of it. Something had to change. And there were a lot of little smaller events that led up to a big, huge event. I think one of the biggest ones in a prior relationship that I was in, she had a son, and I remember I came in the house one Saturday or Friday night, and I was just disgusting. And I remember he looked at me the same way I used to look at my dad growing up when he would come in the house drunk and whatever. So that happened. Then getting DUI. And I think the thing that was scary about the DUI was the only thing I could think of was getting out and drinking.
Wow.
Like, yeah. So, and then just going to work. I would usually wake up in the morning. I would take a shot of something I probably didn't finish the night before. Get ready to go to work, and then on my car ride home or a car ride to my job, I would smoke weed. And then I would get to where I was working, park my car, and then take another shot of whatever I had, and go and try to function. And then lunch break, come out and do the same thing. So it's just a lot of the same cycle. And I just was like, you know what? There has to be more to life than this, because the only time I wasn't drunk or high is when I was asleep.
I mean, it's got to be like either a spiritual experience or something that brought you to that surrender, because you've never been taught that. You've been brought up in a very hard place. So for you to want out, that's pretty big.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I'll definitely say it's because, the grace of God. Because what I've learned in life, especially being, growing up in the inner city, is a lot of times people don't know. Like, you don't know what you don't know. Sometimes, like, people don't know that it's better, especially if you've seen one certain thing your whole life. And I just think it's by the grace of God. As a kid, I would always say to myself, there has to be more. Like, even in situations at home where it wasn't the most stable, like this, there has to be more. But then I think at this time around, I had enough fortitude to actually, instead of asking what asking the question, there has to be more. It was more so, let's just go find out.
Wow.
So
how did you find this place in Minnesota? I mean, that's not where you're from. You checked yourself in. How did you go about finding help?
Well, yeah, there was a long process because keep in mind, I moved to Minnesota in June 12th of 2009. So a lot of the issues I was dealing with in Chicago kind of just overflowed to Minnesota. And the 10 years that I was here, basically before I went, or 9 years before I went to rehab, it was just the parts that I can remember. I was just running, for me, a big thing was trying to figure out where I belong. And I've dealt with rejection, but rejection isn't necessarily a bad thing. Just depends on how you look at it. But so, growing up through some of the struggles we were going through as kids, I didn't feel like any other kid could relate. And then a lot of that was I would make assumptions. Am I twin brother dying? And then all this other stuff. I'm like, who can relate to this? So I always just felt rejected. And then so getting here in Minnesota was like it was a fresh start. But I'm noticing some of the stuff from Chicago is following me. So I couldn't blame Chicago. I couldn't blame anybody else. I had to look at myself. So it was 10 years of struggling. And I was like, all right, I'm going to rehab. And I got the thought of going to rehab when I was drunk one night on my couch. Literally the thought popped in my mind. And I was like, It was like, well, it doesn't hurt to entertain a thought. And then that thought turned into actually, okay, wow, I started going and do research on rehab. Started watching a lot of videos, seeing people's stories. So I was getting really excited. I was like, okay, I'm doing this. And then the day of rehab came and I was like, it's almost like if you can think back, you're younger and you go to an amusement park with your friends. And you're like, I'm going on this roller coaster. I'm going. It's not that tough. And then you get up there and you look up and you're like, what was I thinking?
Right.
So that's how it was for me. And I will never forget the only reason why I decided to go through with it. There was a lady at the front desk and she showed me her before and after. And I was like, wow. And this lady does not know me. And I was getting ready to walk out and she was like, Jeremy. And she said it in like a mom way. So I turned around, I was like, yes, ma'am. And she was like, I know you want to help a lot of people and you're going to help a lot of people. But she was, and I quote, and she said, what if before you helping people, you have to help yourself? And I turned around and I was like, whatever. I didn't say that to her, but in my mind, and then she goes, the thing that really got me is she goes, listen, what if you walking out of that door, you're forfeiting on a lot that God has for you? And this lady had never met this lady, but she knew somehow that's a trigger for me. That's a trigger for me because I'm like, all this stuff I feel like I've already missed out on. And a lot of it is fear. It's fear-based, you know what I'm saying? So,
yep.
And I remember just like, in my mind, I'm a processor. I process things. So in my mind, I'm like, I've tried this before. It hasn't worked. Chances are if I keep having this response to life, it's not going to work. I've never done this before. I'm scared. I'm nervous. What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if I let people down? What if I let myself down? I was like, you know what? A lot of question marks. But I would much rather go and find out. That way I can say for sure, I refuse to be sitting somewhere when I'm 80 years old in the rocking chair saying, I wish I would have did this. I wish I would have did. I will not. So.
Wow. It's just gave me the chills, honestly. My hairs stood up on my arm because we have these little Eskimos and these people they call Eskimos in the program. And, they're like little warriors, little angels that say things or do things or show up in the oddest places that will last in our memories forever. And they will give us so much hope. And they will change our thoughts in that moment to get us to do something that is going to change our entire life. It's so amazing.
Yes.
Now tell us about the walk, because I saw you a while back. I watched videos on YouTube. I mean, I watched a whole bunch of stuff before I even talked to you about the interview. And you did some heavy duty stuff alone too.
Yeah. Wow. I'm going to answer that question, but it's always amazing. Because when I hear people that watch it, like, I think I'll never understand. Because in my mind, like, Facebook or social media, it only impacted my immediate circle. And so it's weird, like, when I get people, not weird, it's amazing when people who don't live in Minnesota, or a friend of mine I think he's in Europe somewhere, and he was watching it. I was like, wait, what? So, yeah, that's amazing. But
That's cool.
yes. So yeah, I did the walk. It was one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do, just because, like you said, for one, you're alone, right? And you can't run to anyone for comfort. And a lot of times, I had T-Mobile at the time, and T-Mobile says they cover 99.9% of Americans. I must have been that 0.1% they didn't cover, because a lot of times I had terrible phone service. But it was sad, because walking within itself is like, you go to bed at night, you're like, okay, what do I have to do tomorrow? Oh, I have to walk. But then it's like on top of that, so it's like a sandwich, if you will. There's that layer, then there's the every day you have to come to grips with the fact that you may not talk to someone face to face.
Wow.
That's crushing. 3, the weather. I was never one of those big people on, like, oh yeah, your weather controls people's mindsets, but like, cloud days where there's nothing, there's just long road, long highway, mountains, horses and cows, and you like, can I deal with this? So then that's another layer, then physically, and then all this stuff I feel like was getting uprooted out of me. A lot of the stuff that I had suppressed through doing drugs or drinking or fighting or whatever
Oh,
it
I'm
came to
sure.
be. And so all of it was coming up, and I'm a little bit of a weirdo in the sense I like to push myself. And I think I got that from how I grew up. So on days when I was out there and it was really tough, I didn't listen to any podcasts. I didn't listen to any music. I wanted to have confidence in myself that I could carry that weight and just be okay with it. Like, cry, do what I have to do, throw a temper tantrum, whatever. But that was the reason why I started doing drugs and drinking. I couldn't deal with the weight of hurting anymore. And so, I mean, imagine that, though. I was 14 when that started. Now I'm 30. I'm 31, 32, so I have to go and literally unwind all of that. And it's like shaking out a blanket with a bunch of dust in it. All you think it's okay. Well, you're like, okay, there's a little bit of dust in there, but you don't understand how much dust is until you start shaking. It was like all this depression, battling thoughts of suicide, battling thoughts of relapsing, battling thoughts of coming back home. The worst fear that I literally felt pull out of me, literally felt like a hangnail. If you've ever pulled a hangnail out, you know how you can feel it detach from your body. Was the fear of how people viewed me, the thoughts in the pit. That is a real thing. When in society nowadays, we're so mindful. What do they think about me? Oh my God! Like, not knowing my identity does not come from a person. That if a person can fight that demon, or just fight that face to face, there's no door in this life you can't open. That is, we always think, well, what if I fail? Like, these are thoughts. Like, what if I fail? Oh my God, people. And I got to a point and I was like, wait, what do I think about me? I had a friend talk to me, and he said, Jeremy, I've worked out with you before. I've seen you push yourself physically. You've never complained about being tired. But he said, the fact that you're saying you don't have anything left, was like, I believe you, because you're not the type physically, you're not the type to give up. And that was in Utah. But
My gosh.
I
That's
still
far.
felt like it wasn't good enough. And that was one of the things I struggle with. People ask me my biggest regret. My biggest regret is I went into this with the mindset of, God, I'm doing this for you, instead of, God, hey, can this be a partnership? Can we do this together?
Got it. That's amazing. So, you stopped along the way. You met people.
Yeah. Well, we met at different youth. We had a plan to stop at different youth homes and rehab facilities. Some of them, they allowed us to come in like they said they would. Some of them didn't. Something where it wasn't like anything malicious. It was someone left or was on vacation. We needed that person's approval. So I think we stopped at like, it was 5 or 6 places. And then we did a hamburger drive. We gave away hamburgers in downtown Denver. We gave away 60 of them to the homeless.
That's so neat.
So yeah, it was really cool just to talk to them, just because they're people, you know?
Yeah.
People, and it was interesting to hear their stories, because it's hard not to judge sometimes. Let's just be honest. Should we judge? No, but the reality is we all fall short of that. And so that was humbling for me to be able to go back to that. And it was like, I used to be, I hate saying I used to be one of you, because you're a person, but it was like, I was in your situation. And I know how it feels. And the last thing you want sometimes is somebody coming up and preaching to you. Like, just how about just listening to somebody and hearing them out? Because sometimes I've learned in life, like you could be one person away. Like, let's say you're having a really bad day and I'm just shopping and I run into you and we bump into each other and you tell me about your day and I just listen. Like, that gives you an opportunity to really just let all that weight go, and you can really like bless somebody and move forward. So it was cool talking to the people.
God, the strength that you have, it's like in the 12 steps. I don't know if you're familiar with the AA 12 steps. We have a lot of different things we do up to the 12th step. And it's taking a look at all that suppressed stuff, getting it out with someone or God or, a friend, religious person, anyone really. And it's almost like you did that. You faced every demon. Now, physically, were you dead? I mean, did it kill you?
Oh my God! You should. Well, I tore my meniscus in my right knee in Wyoming. Physically, I was just telling my fiance, because I'm doing another one. We're trying to set up another. Well, not trying. We are going to set up another one here this May, where I'm going to be walking. I will be staying in Minnesota, but we'll be walking basically from Eagan, Minnesota to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, and hopefully back. But I was telling her, last year I bulked up. Like I was lifting a lot of weights, and I was like, and so when I got out there, I'm like, that was dumb. I don't need this extra weight. But yeah, physically, my blisters had blisters. That was probably one of the darkest places I've ever been in my life, because it was literally just everything. And, so I had to give off perception when I would do like Facebook Lives and Instagram, but that would frustrate me, because I'm like, I'm not really happy right now. Like,
right.
This is the reality of change. And so a lot of times I was smiling, and when I would get off of social media, the people that I could contact, they were, I was crying so much.
Oh.
I was crying so, and it was those.
I lost your face. There, I got you.
Sorry, it was just one of those like healthy from your diaphragm cry that you had locked in there since you were 7 years old.
Wow.
When your first crush told you, when you asked her, do you like me, circle yes or no, and she put no. Like, all of that came up, and it was my pastor always says it's like having the best of times and the worst of time all at the same time.
That is crazy. I'm so proud of you. You're amazing. What does the future hold? So you want to do another walk?
Yes.
Are you currently working with anybody else, or what do you do for your sobriety? What are your daily practices?
For me, that's a good question. Acknowledging where I am. Like, people don't understand. Acknowledgement is one of the best tools we have. And I always say, if you go into a hotel, right? Every hotel has those little rectangle signs, 2 of them that says, in case of emergency, you were here. But if you ask people the most important part of that illustration, 9 out of 10 times people are going to tell you it's the stairs. And I disagree. It's not the stairs. If you can't acknowledge where you are, and if you can't acknowledge where you are, it doesn't matter where the stairs are, because you can't get to help if you can't acknowledge where you are first. And so I think acknowledgement is like, if I'm I'm feeling frustrated or angry or sad, just acknowledge it. I don't sit in it, but I'm like, especially depression. Depression's a nasty one, and I've heard people say they think depression is anger turned inside. But if I ever get depressed, I usually force myself to do stuff that I know eventually, like reading, working out. But for me, the biggest thing is the reason why the urges aren't there. So going to rehab gave me the ability to work on my childhood. Yeah. And so once I got to process all of that, the desire to drink or to use left. So, I mean, I think about it, or the thought crosses my mind periodically, but it's nothing like it was before, where like I'm already a week ahead. Like, how am I going to get high or drunk next week?
Yeah,
I'm running out right now. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, I talk, not that I would ever go back and drink again, but if I ever did, it would, the only thing that I think would, if I was getting like in my honeymoon. But even then, I'm just like, no, I'm okay with some Gatorade and water.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, what's the point of opening it? We know how this story goes, and I'm not going to be a statistic. So then it's like, but that's even to be able to have that thought process now. 3 or 4 years ago, I wouldn't. I'm like, nope, I'm drinking. It's in my heart.
Yeah.
So yeah.
There's no way I'm not drinking on my honeymoon, you know?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I never even thought I was going to get married because nobody would come near me. I was psychotic. And when I got married, I had the best honeymoon. We went to a place where it was all inclusive, alcohol and everything. And I scuba dived 13 days in a row. It was amazing. No alcohol. I just enjoyed the island and the sea and the people and just the history. I didn't even think about alcohol, and it was everywhere around me. And that's such a gift, you know. It's just, and you know, you are coming up on a year. I'm sorry, I said you were over a year, but you're coming up on a year.
No, 2 years.
Or 2 years. Oh my God. It's 2020.
Yeah, I know, right? It's going
oh my God. I'm sorry, I forgot.
No, you're fine.
Lord.
I remember it is, but, and I agree with you. And that was one of the biggest fears that I had before, was trying to figure out if I could have, what is fun? Because I had a, you know, definition of fun before, and it was associated with everything. So that was my fun. And it's funny how we can make something a reality, but that doesn't mean it's the actual reality. But it was like, okay, what is fun? How am I going to have fun? And so, like, since I've been sober, I've been out maybe twice. And they were just like, I went to a jazz club. Mm-hmm. But there's alcohol in the jazz club. And I remember I was nervous. My palms were getting clammy, and I was like, I remember just thinking, why am I nervous? Like, this is stupid. I'm missing out on good music. And I said, it's okay that they want to drink. I can't do anything about their decision. And someone offered me a drink, like, hey, you want a beer? And I was like, no, I'm good. But it was so much ease, like it just clicked, and it was so much ease where before it's like, oh, maybe I should go back and say I do.
Right.
And then I was like, no, bro, I'm good. And then I remember just taking a deep breath. It was real cliche. It was like a movie almost. But I remember just standing in the back of the lounge, and I just saw everybody else. And then I kind of saw the over me, and then it was almost like that part of me died. And I was like, man, this is amazing.
That's dope. I was just working with the sponsee the last few days, and that's someone I sponsor in the program. And there's the fourth column where they write down all that stuff, and then the fifth column is where they tell somebody about it. And I feel like you're similar to her in the way of breaking the chains. You know, well, your website is walkunchained.com. I guess it fits. But you're like, you're going to start a new family. You're going to raise, you know, if you have children. I'm not saying that you will or whatever, but you know, you're going to be in a different light.
Absolutely. That's my biggest thing. I was recently thinking about legacy. Like, maybe I'm too young, Hopefully, I got like at least 60 or 70 years left. We'll see. But I was thinking about legacy, and I was talking to my fiance, and that's one thing. Like one thing we agree on is the infidelity, the addiction, suicide, murder, whatever it is, things that have been happening in our family line. Like this is it. Like the buck stops now. That none of that is carrying over, because I do have a daughter and I do have a son, and I plan on having more kids. And it's like that. No, like that. Like it's funny because growing up, it was like, oh, I just want to be famous. I wanted to be rich, blah, 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 blah. And now it's like, no, I don't. I haven't gotten a lot of attention from doing this walk, which is great. I want to be recognized for my work, but I don't. Anything over there is too much. I'm like, we have to do something different. Like our kids, like we're going to sit back and say, because our grandparents decide, or our great granddad is some weirdo who decided to walk from Minnesota. Who knows if it would be called Minnesota back then, or Minnesota to California. Who knows? We might have flying cars, my great, but it stops. And it's the crazy thing is cycles are big. And what I've learned from women is that, women have a cycle. It comes every month, and the way to break a cycle is to plant a seed. And sometimes planting a seed can mean just doing something differently, changing up a habit, becoming more aware of how you respond, becoming aware of your triggers, and not pretending like they're not there.
Yes.
That one.
So people can reach you. You're on Instagram, Walk Unchained. You have
Yes,
a website, walkunchained.com. And you're
Yes,
also
ma'am.
on Facebook, Jeremy Floyd.
Yes, ma'am. Jeremy L. Floyd, yeah.
Jeremy L. Floyd. Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
perfect. And I can't even tell you how much I'm just so impressed by you and what you've done and where you're going, and for all the people that you inspired. And it was just amazing that I came across your videos. I don't even know how, but I did. And then eventually we hooked up on this podcast. So I'm so grateful to have you on. I'd love to have you on again, like in 6 months, checking in, seeing how you were doing. And anything else you want to say before we go?
Maybe I could check in with you when I start the new walk as I'm walking.
I'm totally down. Let's do it.
Yes. No, I just want to thank you for, taking your time out of your evening or your day to talk. And thank you for being interested, and just thank you.
Thank you. I hope you have a great evening.
Yes, ma'am.